joining me. My name is Edshara, and today I am sharing my top 10 of 2017. Now, the majority of the books that I have were not published this year, but they're all books that I actually read this year. So starting at number 10, we have Taken by D. Henderson. Now, this is a Christian fiction novel, and it's about a girl who was kidnapped when she was in her teens, and she's just now finding a way to escape in her mid-20s. And this was not the best book that I read this year, but from a personal standpoint, this book was very impactful. There were some things that I was questioning and I was confused about and perhaps even frustrated about, and the author was able to communicate some of the answers that I was looking for through her main character. And while our situations were nowhere near the same, the responses that she had to some of the things that she had been through were kind of what I was hoping to gain from some of the things that I have been through. And so it really helped me to shift my focus and rethink how I was thinking about some of the things that have happened in my past. So again, while there were some plot issues, I thought there could have been a little bit more action in this book. From a personal standpoint, this was a pretty powerful and impactful book, and so it had to make my list. And then book 9 is Fable Haven by Brandon Mull, and this was my first Brandon Mull book, and I loved it because it gave me 80s baby vibes. It reminded me of The Labyrinth, which is one of my all-time favorite movies, and I haven't had the heart to watch it since David Bowie died, but this book gave me kind of those vibes because I could imagine a lot of the characters in this book as Jim Henson puppets, and it was just, it was so good. I really appreciated this book. It was so fun, so much so that I had to go out and buy the entire series, which I believe it's 5 books, maybe 6. I can't remember off the top of my head, but I love this first book. I gave this one, I think I gave it 4 stars. I also appreciated the fact that the author included ethnically diverse fairies, which I love fairies, but I don't read that many fairy books because most of the fairies do not look like me. But in this book, the author mentioned that there were African fairies and Indian fairies and Asian fairies, and I really appreciated that. And at one point, all of the fairies were a very big part of the book, so it was nice to see, some ethnically diverse fairies mentioned in this world. And so I've only read books 1 and 2 in the series. Book 2 was a bit of a letdown, but I'm still really interested in the series, and I can't wait to continue. And then book 8 is Copper Sun by Sharon M. Draper. This book was a 5-star read for me, and it is tragically beautiful. It is so well written, but it follows a young girl named Amari who watches her village be destroyed, and then she, as well as any survivors from her village, are taken, and they are brought here to America and sold into slavery. And this book just hit all the feels. There are moments, glimmers of happiness and joy, and moments of triumph. There are moments of just pain and abuse and frustration, and it's so well done that you go on this roller coaster of emotions with Amari, who is the 15-year-old girl who was taken from her home. And it was one of those books that I had to put down and walk away from at points because it was so intense. And there is also a Caucasian girl in here named Polly, and she is an indentured servant. And in the beginning, her and Amari's relationship is very strained, and you get to see the progression of it throughout the book. I would highly recommend it if you are interested in this type of writing. Like I said, it is intense, or it was for me, so I would definitely kind of go into it knowing there are triggers of abuse, both physical and sexual, and it talks about slavery, so be prepared if you're going to read this. And book 7, I think we're at, is Story Thieves by James Riley. This was another 5-star read for me. And I love this one because most of us bookworms have imagined ourselves being able to dive into a fictional world, literally. And this book does just that, and it does it really, really well. I loved our main character, Bethany. I wasn't a big fan of Owen, who is the other main character, but he grew on me. He frustrated me, but he did grow on me. But this was so well done, and even though this is a middle grade, it definitely can stand up to adult readers. This was really, really good. It was really well done. It was funny. It had a little bit of intense moments, but it was really well written, and I, again, love this so much that I had to buy the next books in the series. So I have books 2 and books 3. Book 4 is out now, but it doesn't come out in paperback until next year, so I have to wait to get it in paperback. But I love this series. Another one that I would highly recommend. And it's so much fun. And I can't wait to get the 4th book so then I can binge the entire series. And book 6 is Memoirs of an Imaginary Friend by Matthew Dix. And this one follows Max, who is on the autism spectrum, and he has a best friend named Budo, who is imaginary. And the book is told from Budo's perspective, and something happens, and Max, or Budo, has to decide, is his existence more important or is Max's life more important? And this was a 5-star read for me, and it was also a reread, and I'm so glad that I reread this book because I loved it more and I appreciated it more the second time around. I feel like we are in a society where some of us are attempting to stress the fact that just because you are classified as disabled, it does not mean that you are limited. And I felt like this was a book that really hit the nail on the head for that, because, you know, you had Max, who by society standards was not normal, and yet some of the things that he did were so understandable and so recognizable as something that, okay, maybe I wouldn't have done it that way, but I understand why he did it that way. And so I just, looking through the eyes of someone who is supposedly, you know, not normal, and seeing how he handled and navigated his world, especially where people didn't understand him, where people didn't get him, I thought it was so, so good. And the story is surprising and it's fun in a way that it kind of keeps you on the edge of your seat because you don't know exactly what's going to happen. And there's supposed to be a sequel, and Mr. Dix needs to hurry up and come out with it because I would definitely love to read more of this story and kind of this world. And book 5 is Gemina. This is the second book in the Illuminate files by Amy Kaufman and Jay Kristoff. And this was a 5-star read for me, and this was the perfect sequel. I really enjoyed this book. I thought the writing and kind of the premise and the plot, the action, all of that was fantastic. It was so good, and the audiobook was good just as well. And it has set me up to be really excited for the 3rd book in the series, which I think is the final book in the series. I'm not sure, but it's Obsidio, and it comes out next year, and I need to pre-order it because I need to have it in my life. And book 4 is A Matter of Souls by Denise Lewis Patrick. And this is a collection of short stories, all written by Denise Lewis Patrick. And they focus on racism, segregation, and the treatment of people of color. And this was one that I read earlier this year as a library checkout. Again, I loved it so much that I had to pick up my own copy. And this was a 5-star read for me. And I loved it because each story is set in a different time period. Some of them take place on different continents. And while it focuses a lot on segregation and racism and the treatment of people of color and slavery and things of that nature, it focuses on the bad, but it also, you know, focuses on the hope and the triumph, and it again hits on all those different feels, and it makes you question, it makes you think, and it makes you reflect. And this was just so well done. Each story was so well written, but each one had somewhat of a different tone. This is another one that I highly recommend. Again, I can't remember off the top of my head because it's been a few months since I've read this, but there are probably some triggers, obviously, so if you do try to give this a read, be careful, but just know I do think it's worth it. And book 3 is the only book that I do not own as of yet, and it is book 1 in the Castle Glower series by Jessica Day George, and that is Tuesdays at the Castle. And this was one that I think I read probably in the summer, I think, and it was a 5-star read for me. I really, really enjoyed it. And I think it was most of all because I went into this book thinking, okay, it's going to be about Princess Sealy and her magical castle. And it turned out to be so much more. And I don't want to give away too much because I was surprised by some of the things that were happening in the book because they weren't in the synopsis, obviously. But it was so well written. I really appreciated the high level of communication that was in the book, because at one point, Princess Sealy, her older brother Rolf, and her older sister Lila, I believe, they were all kind of, you know, left to their own devices, and they worked really well together, and there wasn't any of that bickering or sibling rivalry or, you know, I'm the oldest so you have to do as I say. No, they worked together and they communicated and they played off of each other's strengths, and there wasn't too much bickering or arguing, which I really, really loved. The family dynamic as a whole was really great. It was a really solid family unit, and I thought that was really nice to see, especially in a middle grade book. I really, really enjoyed the book as a whole. I thought it was nicely done. Like I said, I was so surprised by some of the things that were happening, and this is definitely a series that I would like to continue. Okay guys, we're down to the last 2 books, so we're almost done, and these 2 could have easily been reversed in order. I had a hard time deciding which one was number 1, which one was number 2, but in the end, for book 2, I chose The Hate You Give by Angie Thomas, and this was one that I saw talked about at the end of last year, and I thought, you know, I don't know that I want to read that. You know, I've seen the news, I've seen the Facebook Lives. I don't think I need to read a book about it. But I'm really glad that I gave this a chance because it is really, really good. I think the thing that I love the most about this book is it's not just people of color raving about this book. This is a well-rounded book, and anybody can read it, anybody can benefit from it, and that's what I love about it. This isn't just a book for Black people. This is a book for everyone, and I think everyone should read it. And the thing that I love too about it was it's not argumentative, it's not disrespectful. It, you know, takes true thought processes and, you know, things that you might find in the comments on a post on Twitter or Instagram or Facebook, and it puts them into characters. And so I don't really see how people could be mad about this book because it's the truth. These are the things that happen. And so I love the book. I personally loved her writing style and some of her inclusion of things that, you know, I know and recognize from pop culture. And I really do think that this is a great book, and it deserves all the accolades and awards that it's winning and all the praise. I'm so excited for the movie because I love several of the actors that were chosen to play the characters, and I'm just... oh, I'm excited. Okay guys, my battery died, so if the angle is a little bit different, please forgive me. But I was in the middle of talking about my number 1 favorite book. My train of thought is a little bit off. But my number 1 book of the year is Illuminate by Amy Kaufman and Jay Kristoff. This is the first book in the Illuminate Files series, And this was a big deal for me because I am a new to sci-fi fan. So for me to not only read sci-fi but to buy sci-fi was a big deal. But I really enjoyed this book. I thought it was so well done. I loved the mixed media format. That is probably my favorite thing of the entire book or the entire series, is the mixed media format. I also really enjoyed the audiobook. And again, I would highly recommend, if you can, listening to the audiobook while you follow along in a physical copy, because it was just on point. I loved it. I love Katie and Ezra. I thought they were really great characters. I loved, you know, kind of all the action and everything that happened and everything that they had to go through, separately and together. And this book was just so much fun. I loved it so much. And that is it for my top 10 of 2017. It was really hard to pick which books were in the top 10 because I read, I think, 112 books, and I'm currently reading one. So by the end of the year, it's probably going to be 113 at the least. But 112 books is the most books that I've ever read in a year. I've never read more than, I think, like 40 maybe. So to read 112 and to have enjoyed the majority of them is like, it's a big thing for me. So I'm very happy. I hope that everybody enjoyed their holidays, whether you celebrate Kwanzaa, whether you celebrated Christmas or Hanukkah. I hope that everybody had a great holiday season, and I hope that everybody has a great, blessed, happy, healthy 2018. So until next time, guys, God bless. Bye. That I checked out from my library.